Welcome into Payoff Pitch, Action Network's MLB betting podcast. We are presented by BetMGM. Brendan Glasheen joined by Sean Zerillo and Charlie DiSturco from Monday Best Bets, getting you set for Monday, June 17th. We are recording live Sunday night, June 16th. Red Sox Yankees into the later part of the evening. You know, I'll tell you what, with the new pitch clock and the game's moving along, Red Sox Yankees not going 4 or 5 hours anymore. It's quite nice, I gotta say. I say all that and watch the game get tied, and they're going to be into extra innings as we record. So anyway, you can hear Best Bets Monday, Tuesdays, and Friday mornings during the regular season. So please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. Also find the video version live on the Action Network YouTube page. Sunday night, so we're looking at a small slate from Monday, just 9 games. There are some other things we got to get to. There was a big injury today, which is unfortunate, that we will discuss later in the show that could impact several markets, most notably MVP. So there's a tease. Stay tuned for that. As for Best Bets, Sean Zerillo, where are we looking for Monday? A shorter slate.
Take the Blue Jays in both halves, a team I've not tried to bet on very much this year. Took that playoff bet against them, and they basically played how I've expected since then, and hopefully continue to flounder a little bit. I saw they sent out their season ticket renewals for next year 7 days before this year's trade deadline. So they want those season ticket renewals potentially before they deal off Bichette or Vladimir Guerrero or other pieces from this roster. Found that very interesting to say. But in terms of Monday's matchup, I projected them closer to about minus 150 in both halves. We'll see where I put my final number because their opponents, the Red Sox, are playing currently as we're recording and do have to travel overnight, get into Canada, going to have a late flight. So a little bit of rest advantage for the Blue Jays here as well. Rest and travel advantage. They were at home today against the Guardians. Now, how you handicap this matchup kind of comes down to how you view the differential between Nick Pivetta and Yusei Kikuchi. I have them pretty much on par with one another. Now, Pivetta on the year, 138 stuff plus. It's the highest number in all of baseball amongst starting pitchers. But his past couple of starts, it's dipping a little bit lower, and his slider velocity was the lowest it's been all season in his last start, down 2 ticks relative to the rest of the season. His fastball was in line with where it's been all year, but a big dip in that slider velocity gives me some concern. So Kikuchi on the year, 3.4 expected ERA, 110 stuff plus, 106 pitching plus. Pivetta on the year, 138 stuff plus, but in that last start, 128 stuff plus, and a pitching plus line right in line with what Kikuchi has done this season. So seeing that slider velocity dip gives me some concern about Pivetta. I think overall in the season, he has pitched to a slightly higher level. If you go back to last year when he was inserted into the Red Sox rotation, I mean, since then, he has one of the highest strikeout rates in all of baseball. So the strikeout stuff is there. I think it just comes down to the command, and twice in his past 4 starts, he's given up as many walks as he's generated strikeouts. So I think the commands have been a little bit wonky. Taking a look at the offensive splits in this matchup, the Jays are getting the best that they can using a lefty against Boston and facing a righty coming back at them. The Red Sox are 16th against lefties this season. The Jays are 17th against righties. If you flip the splits, the Jays are a bottom 5 offense against lefties. The Red Sox are top 8 against righties. So the offensive split should be relatively neutral. The bullpens, I think, are relatively neutral. Comes down to Jays home field, the travel, the rest, and their defensive advantage as well. And that's the biggest key and the biggest difference in this matchup. They're the number 1 defensive team per defensive run saved this season, number 2 per outs above average. Boston mid-table in defensive runs saved, and bottom 5 in outs above average. So I think Toronto is a substantially better defensive team. We'll see how that plays out in terms of, the offensive matchups and what have you. But yeah, that's where my biggest edge and differential lies in projecting this one out. Everything else is essentially even except for rest, home field advantage, and the defense. So Toronto at about minus 150, like them up to a minus 135 another half.
Okay, and we'll see how it plays out tonight with the Red Sox as far as their bullpen usage as this night unfolds. Charlie, how about you? Shorter slate tomorrow for Monday, June 17th. Best bet.
Yeah, so I don't have anything side or total wise, and there's nothing props in majority of the markets right now. But the one guy that I circled as far as a fade goes, and if you wanted to take it a step further and take a side, it would go fading James Paxton and betting on the Rockies, because what's more disgusting than hoping that the Rockies bullpen doesn't implode? But I just want to fade Paxton here. 5 expected ERA, long evaded negative regression, has pitched a little bit better of late. But when you just look at the numbers, a 13% strikeout rate, near 13% walk rate, he's just not able to overpower the opposition, and he's just benefited from a 251 batting average on balls in play. But this Rockies team, as you know, gross as they can come, they're actually above that halfway point in against left-handed pitching when it comes to WRC plus at home this season at Coors Field. Obviously, we know, pitchers struggle a little bit more. They don't have as much break in some of their off speed. The Rockies have been able to take advantage of that. 14th in WRC plus, 8th in isolated power this year. So looking to fade James Paxton on the prop market, I'm assuming it'll be around, 15.5 outs, 4.5 strikeouts, maybe 3.5. But obviously at the time of recording, nothing's out right now. And another interesting note about Paxton, he has a 5.23 ERA away from home, a 2.51 at home. So that's 7 to 5 starts. So it's a pretty decent sample size based on this season. And we talk about how he's evaded negative regression. Well, the teams that have been able to kind of clobber him and take advantage of him away from home, I think this is a great play on the Rockies here, playing a little bit better of late. I also like Hunter Goodman. I think he intrigues me. A very big power bat, a 15% barrel rate, crushes the ball, but high strikeout rate. But against Paxton, a guy that can't get those swings and misses and chases, Hunter Goodman, if he's batting, 5th or 6th in the order, I think he's more than live to at least crush one and hit a homer.
Okay, very good. James Paxton. They're not Dodgers 9-3 in his starts this year. James Paxton, the guy just getting away with everything. Yeah, getting away with a lot of stuff. More on the Dodgers in just a second here. Let's go to Fade the Public. We got 2 games on our radar for tomorrow. 91% of the bets. As of right now, 100% of the cash coming in on the Philadelphia Phillies tomorrow against the San Diego Padres. And a lot of cash coming in on the Braves. 94% of the bets, 99% of the cash on the Braves over the Detroit Tigers. That is your outlook for tomorrow. Any of these, Zerillo, where the public might be off, or is there any way to fade the public for tomorrow on those 2 games?
Neither quite in range for me yet. I'd say the Phillies first 5 line is the one that is a bit closer to my price target. I see a minus 160 out there, projected it closer to minus 170. I'd want a minus 155 on Christopher Sanchez. So, recording this pod on a little bit of the early side, we'll see closer to midnight as more first 5 markets open up at books if a minus 155 pops up. But that would be the way I would target the Phillies game. Vasquez, Randy Vasquez, a guy I've talked about a bunch this season. He remains a really good pitch modeling guy, 108 pitching plus, or 103 pitching plus, 108 stuff plus. But that 5.93 expected ERA, it's not coming together yet. His last 2 starts have been a little bit better, though. But this podcast, Action Network, colleagues, all very high on Christopher Sanchez. We've been a Christopher Sanchez friendly space for the past couple of seasons. The Phillies pitching is absolutely tremendous. And I feel like Sanchez gets lost in the shuffle, but he's a very solidly 3.6 expected ERA guy who on most rotations in baseball would be your number 2 starter. And he's kind of like their number 4 guy and very quietly, sits in there, gives them effective turns every time out. So I like Christopher Sanchez a lot. I really think he gets lost in the mix in Philadelphia. And the other matchup, Braves and Tigers, it would be Tigers or pass for me. I want a better number on Detroit. Plus 190 or better would be my price target there. Projected that closer to plus 175. Reese Olson has gotten lit up in his past few starts, and both Reese Olson and Max Fried are not pitch modeling guys. Both have below average pitch modeling metrics. And Fried, I bring it up constantly, but he's so difficult to project because he doesn't do anything like any other pitcher in terms of the strikeout minus walk rate or elite pitching plus numbers, stuff plus numbers, anything, but he consistently pitches to that low 3s expected ERA in the 2s because he generates so much weak contact and gets so many ground balls. Reese Olson all year has had a 97 pitching plus figure, an average strikeout minus walk rate, but he's had an expected ERA in the low 3s, mid to low 3s. And even now, even after permitting 18 runs in his last 3 starts, it's still a low 3s expected ERA, 3.6, so mid 3s. It's come up a little bit. So, Yeah, I don't really know what to do with either of these guys in terms of like projecting them relative to performances. Projection systems are much lower on them than their underlying indicators. So it is a bit easier when you have two of them instead of one of them, right? If you don't know what to do with both of them, okay, then just kind of leave them at their projections or move both to their expected metrics or do the same thing with them. But if one guy's doing something weird and the other guy's pretty normal and stabilized, then you're kind of left with like the difficulty of how to handicap the one guy. So all that said, Tigers plus 190 or better. We'll see if it floats there overnight. Not interested in firing right now. And it seems like that Braves offense is finally picking things up, scoring a bunch of runs over the weekend against the Rays and hammering some overs in games where I got CLV on the under. So I think this Braves offense may finally be awake as well.
Okay. All right, there's your outlook, Charlie. Any direction you'd like to take on either of these public sides, the Philadelphia Phillies or the Atlanta Braves?
Yeah, we could talk Phillies. The 777s will be out tomorrow around noon, 1 o'clock. And that's kind of where I'm heading in the batter prop market, home runs. It's really interesting. You look at, so if we talk about Randy Vasquez and, Sean mentions that the pitch modeling numbers like him, and then you look at his underlying metrics, there's some concerns there. Bottom 10% in strikeout rate. I think he'll get more chases and swings and misses over time, given the underlying pitch modeling metrics. But he's in the first percentile in expected batting average with a 318 expected batting average. And, Sean mentioned the expected ERA. Vasquez also has a below average ground ball rate and has been barreled nearly 10% of the time. And so when you're putting the ball in the air a lot and getting barreled, 1 every 10 balls in play, it makes for some home runs. And Randy Vasquez has given up a home run in all but one game this season. In particular, against lefties, the left-handed hitters are batting .450 with a 1.2 OPS against him. So they are absolutely crushing him. You look at some of the games, I just had his log picked up here: 10 fly balls, 14 fly balls, 9 fly balls, 13, 12. That's his last 5 games that he started. Citizens Bank Park, we all know, hitter-friendly park at times, especially when the wind is blowing out. And the wind is tentatively, looking at the monitor right now, of double-digit winds with 85-degree temperatures. So the ball could easily be flying here. And, a guy like Vasquez who can't put the ball on the ground at a consistent rate, it could lead to some disaster. And the two guys, Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, I think are more than live given the success that, or lack thereof, Randy Vasquez has had against lefties at the plate. But, at the time of recording, there's only a couple places out with some props. Schwarber is a sub 200 to hit a home run, so I'm not going to be probably doing that.
It is June, so
it's June.
His line just get flashed in June.
I was going to say 3 home runs in June already. He had 3 in the entire month of May. It's only a matter of time before he hits 5 in 5 days. If you want to take Schwarber, I won't blame you, but 2-1 is too low of a number for me. So I'm going to probably look toward Harper. Right now, best number available is 275, but I would imagine there'd be a market that opens up closer to maybe 3, and that's where I'll be looking. Harper, a 150 WRC plus, a near 250 isolated power against right-handed pitching. And over his last 15 days, he's hitting 300. So I think this is a good time to buy on Bryce Harper. The weather conditions are also perfect. As long as there's no dead balls dying on me in deep center, I think Harper's more than live to at least crush a double, if not a home run.
Edmundo Sosa is their most improved hitter this year. I think he's another guy who's like kind of flown under the radar, but not only in terms of batted ball data, quality of batted balls, but also Seager, like swing decisions. He's gone from one of the worst players to one of the best. So I don't know what's gone on with Edmundo Sosa at 28 years old, 3 years in with the Phillies on his second team, but he's turning into a pretty legit player. And they've got some decisions to make when Trey Turner comes back, maybe DHing Turner, putting Sosa at shortstop. Turner's a terrible defensive shortstop. People don't talk about that much either. He's like one of the worst defensive shortstops. He's really bad. But his bat, more than overcomes that. It's kind of like Mookie. Mookie's been a legitimately awful defensive shortstop this year. We'll talk about Mookie more in a second. But yeah, I think Sosa is been a very interesting player. And I'm curious when Trey comes back to see if they keep finding ways to put Sosa in the lineup. Maybe Schwarber plays the field a little bit more. Get Turner some bats at DH.
Yeah, over a 1.1 OPS against left-handed pitching is Edmundo Sosa. He has absolutely slaughtered them.
Okay, well, there you go. You mentioned Mookie bets. Not great.
Yeah.
Fractured hand, drilled by a pitch in today's game at Dodger Stadium against the Kansas City Royals. I'm reading a quote. This was a couple hours ago. Mookie Betts was available in the locker room. And he said, I'll be watching the boys and cheering them on. Other than that, just kind of rest, maybe use it as a mental break and be ready to go whenever it heals up. So for the foreseeable future, Mookie Betts is out and not in the Dodgers lineup. It segues into our underdog segment, Zerillo, but let's start with the general news that Mookie Betts was atop the NL MVP favorites as of today, heading into our record tonight. And this shakes up the board drastically.
Yeah, this is why you don't bet MVP favorites in April when they're surging and it's like 4-1 and you're like, oh, but this guy has such a huge lead and more if he just keeps playing like this. Like there were people betting Mookie when he was at the peak of his performance, like taking the worst possible price. Just let it be a lesson to you. Don't buy when the hype is the highest. It's the worst possible time you could buy anything. But MVP futures in April on a guy who has a lead when he still has 5 months to try to stay healthy. Like, what are you doing? So I don't really know where Ketel Marte settles in terms of odds once this shakes out, but he is your NL WAR leader currently behind Mookie Betts. I know Ohtani will come into second choice because of how well he's playing, the fact that the focus will be more upon him over the next 6 weeks or so. He's been hitting again. It seemed like he was banged up for a little bit. His bats come back, though. But the fact that he doesn't play the field and doesn't accumulate that defensive wins above replacement does hurt him, ultimately. So guys who play the field, like Ketel Marte, like Wilson Contreras, like Bryce Harper, I think those are the guys that I would be more focused on in terms of potentially winning the award. I have Harper preseason. I don't want to bet Harper right now at 3-1. But Jurickson Profar is up there very highly on the leaderboard. So I think Jurickson Profar is going to win NL MVP now. But I'd be taking shots on guys who are up there in wins above replacement who you think could stay around for the rest of the season. And Ketel Marte, absolutely a guy capable of doing so. Wilson Contreras is probably the most underrated player in baseball. Maybe not so much anymore after the season he's having now, but him and Jose Ramirez remain two of like the more underrated superstars because of the teams they play for and the divisions they play in. And they play in the middle of the country. Nobody focuses on those teams. But yeah, I think Wilson Contreras, if you were to ask me who's the most valuable player to their team, not who am I voting on for MVP, not like the criteria for voting on MVP, but like in a vacuum, who do I think is the MVP? Might be Wilson Contreras. It really might be. I don't know how good that Brewers team would be without him. Yelich has been great. Joey Ortiz has been great. Their pitching is just like cobbled together. So, yeah, I'm curious where Charlie's maybe thinking of looking for the NL market, and it's something I'm going to look into overnight because come morning, the odds will shift and people will have probably made some decent sized bets into this market. So definitely worth thinking about in the morning. And maybe I'll have an Action Network notification in the app by the time you hear this podcast.
There's a couple of guys that I am intrigued by. First off, Fernando Tatis Jr., I think he's like 10-1 right now. You look at the WAR market, he's 12th behind, William Contreras, a couple of pitchers as well. I think it's only a matter of time before Tatis takes off, and then that 10-1 number will be halved. Like all the underlying metrics for him based on just batted ball data, over a 3 expected batting average and a 550 expected slugging, and how he's done right now this far this season, a 272 average and a 459 slugging. So that's 30 points off an average and 100 points off slugging. So based on how he's actually approaching the plate, the balls that he's putting into play, it seems like he's been a bit unlucky. He's barreling the ball. He's doing just about everything you want him to do. Is almost the hardest hard hit rate of his career outside of that COVID season. I think that, Profar, maybe he ate into some of that, but I think that it's only a matter of time before Tatis separates himself and really just takes a hold of that. And then the other guy, Sean, I'm curious what you think about this. I don't know if I'm insane based on this New York Mets grimace run and the success that's been going on. Not that the Mets are going to, make the playoffs. Francisco Lindor is a guy that is 16th in WAR this season. And he's, if the Mets are going to continue to be successful, it's going to be on his back. And he has been a lot better at the plate this season, especially, in the last 2 weeks or so. That's a guy that like looking at just the leaderboard right now. I think there's even a 200-1 out there on Francisco Lindor.
Why do you do this to yourself? You're doing it right now.
It's funny given that the season he's had and like how much he's been booed. I mean, he's still hitting 230. He does though have a 364 expected weighted on base and a 314 actual, so he's been severely unlucky. And if you look at the updated end of season WAR leaderboards for the National League, Mookie Betts 1. I'm sure that will be adjusted. Fernando Tatis 2. Francisco Lindor.
See?
Ketel Marte is 4th on there. That's the Zips updated leaderboard. The updated Seamer leaderboard goes Betts, Ohtani, Tatis, Marte, Will Smith, and then Lindor, and then Wilson Contreras. So Lindor's inside the top 6 on both. He's 3rd per Steamer, maybe 2nd when you wake up tomorrow and Mookie Betts gets docked for playing time. Because I think Betts might be out 8 to 10 weeks, legitimately. When you break the hamate bone, when guys get hit with a pitch on their hand, typically they break the hamate bone, and that's like an 8 to 10 week injury. So I don't know what he broke or fractured specifically, but he really might be out up to 2 months. So I think Betts is done in terms of MVP honors. I'm not saying done for the season. I'm saying in terms of MVP awards, he's done.
Yeah, and 502 expected slugging.
Lindor at 200-1 is by far the funniest outcome.
But it's funny, but like I don't think it's outrageous. Like you look at the underlying
given the projections, it's not. No.
278 expected batting average, a 502 expected slugging. He's not been playing that well by the numbers that you look at, like 231 average. But I mean, he's probably going to hit, 25, 30 home runs, probably going to steal 20, 25 bags. I'd assume his average ends up in the 260, 70 range. Like at the Mets, listen, the Mets could be the Mets and they can end up 20 games under 500 and sell everyone. But like, if there's one guy that it's going to be lifting them, it's going to be him.
The last one I'll call out because I have him at, I think, 150-1 preseason is Ellie. Because you can't project Ellie. You just can't. Every single projection system had Ellie finishing with under 40 steals coming into the year. They had him stealing fewer bags than he stole in like half a season last year. I still don't understand how that happened. How everybody universally agreed that he would steal fewer bases in a full season than he stole in half a season last year. But regardless, I just think he's impossible to project. And he's going to go on huge hot streaks and huge cold streaks. And right now he's having a cold streak, but he also scored 3 runs today, including a homer. And he scored a run from second base on a missed pickoff attempt. Like, that's some MVP shit. Who else is scoring from second on a missed pickoff attempt? There's nobody else in baseball who can do that. So when you want to talk about like narrative and highlights and like guys who are Ellie's gonna get all the hype the rest of the way. If he has a big hot streak, especially, and the Reds stay in the mix. We were talking about the Reds on Friday's pod with Mikey and Ello. It doesn't seem like CES is gonna come back. It seems like that news is trending negatively. So a little bit more out on the Reds than maybe I was a few days ago. I still like Noel V. Marte when he eventually jumps back in. But I think Ellie worth mentioning in there as another consideration. But I don't know how deep down that board I want to go, but there are the guys I mentioned, Ketel, William Contreras. You brought up Lindor, who is top 5, top 6 in projections on both updated projections. I think those are the guys to seriously take a look at, and maybe it's worth writing about and digging deeper into this market, since this is a significant change.
Mm-hmm.
That was the overall point, though, of having this discussion is Mookie Betts' name recognition alone in the year he's had worthy of the discussion. And
yeah, it's a shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame because he's such a good player, and I feel like his career accolades don't even measure up to how dominant of like a Hall of Fame case he's already posted. What does he have? 1 MVP award, 1 ring? I guess he has 2 rings, but 1 MVP award. He feels like a guy who should have multiple MVPs by this point, and he may only end up with 1 for his career, which would be a shame.
Mm-hmm.
When did he win MVP? He's not
2018.
2018.
With
he
Boston?
finished second in 2020. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then he was second
last year he was second as well. Yeah.
Yep.
Finished second twice.
Sorry. I mean, you'd think because the Red Sox didn't want to pay him,
second.
that would remember.
2016 he also finished second. 3-time runner-up MVP.
If you ain't first, you last, Ricky Bobby.
And he was like running away with it this year, other than health.
Wow. Yeah, 16. He was second in MVP. No
so
kidding.
legitimately, like, alternate universe, he has 5 MVPs. Like if things go slightly different,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
5 MVP Mookie versus 1 MVP Mookie. Like, think about that career. Yeah.
1 MVP Lindor after this.
So, but Zerillo, we can pick it up here. 2 underdogs for tomorrow, and you like the Rockies tomorrow. How much does bets play into that? Because the Dodgers are playing the Rockies tomorrow.
Yeah, so I mean, the Dodgers lineup has just been top 3 guys all year, and I bet on their first 5s a lot, and it's just like hopeless when it gets to the bottom of the lineup, and you have Gavin Lux, and now you have David Biggio in there, and it's just like every single inning, runners on first and second, 2 out, and they strike out every time. It's painful, and their top 2 lineup spots, which they've played 2 of Ohtani, Betts, or Freeman every day, so their top 2 lineup spots have an OPS of like 990 or higher. Their number 3 spot, which at worst has had like Will Smith in it, except for Freddie, that has like an 850 plus OPS. And then their 4 through 9 spots are like a 650 OPS. And the bottom 3 it's horrendous. It's like 500, 550. So removing one of your 900 plus OPS hitters from that lineup, removing your spark. Also, who hits leadoff now for them? I was trying to think about like their lineup construction. Like, does Freddie hit leadoff? Ohtani's not going to hit leadoff, right? Who bats leadoff for them? They just have a really goofy like lineup if you take Betts out. They don't really have like an OBP guy. I would bat like Muncy leadoff maybe. Do like the Schwarber thing. If Muncy was healthy, he's not healthy.
Yeah, Muncy's not even healthy.
Yeah, but like who bats leadoff for them?
They
don't
question.
really have like a leadoff guy. I think it's Freddie. I think I would put Freddie up top. So their lineup's goofy now. They only have 2 hitters, Will Smith and Teoscar. Sure. Like, I'm just saying, like, in terms of like the guys who have consistently produced all year, without Muncy, without Betts, it's a shallow lineup, man. So if you get through Freddie, if you get through Ohtani, you're cruising through the final 2/3 of that lineup. And then you just can't let hitters on base in the bottom half of the lineup and let them drive people in. But yeah, I made this line for the Rockies about, let's see where I put it, plus 136. So plus 150 or better on Colorado would absolutely be a bet for me. I made it plus 125 for the first 5 innings. I'm glad this isn't like a Tyler Glasnow start the day after Mookie got hurt and Glasnow pitched today. I'm glad I'm not like betting the Rockies here at plus 200, against the pitcher I really like. I'm happy to be betting him against the pitcher I don't like, who I'm low on, who I think is due for severe progression. I'm not going to repeat all the points that Charlie repeated because I've been echoing them throughout the year, but yeah, I not only did I project value here, I don't think it had adjusted properly because it was only open at a couple books and it didn't move. It's literally open at 2 domestic books right now when I bet it, and it didn't move before or after his injury. It was up before the injury and it remained in the same spot after. So I took Rockies plus 170, got a nice big edge on that number, would bet them down to about plus 150, plus 145 even, and then that first 5 line I'm going to like it plus 135 or better. And then the Miami Marlins, I'm also betting as well. I know. Hold the nose. Braxton Garrett been severely unlucky this season. ERA over 6. He has a 4.26 expected ERA. He has a 55% strand rate. His strand rate is 20% below his career average. He's posting the best walk rate of his career, the highest ground ball rate of his career, just getting severely unlucky. And the Cardinals use their key relievers really aggressively in recent days. Ryan Helsley, Andrew Kittredge, Fernandez, they all went multiple times, I believe 3 times in 4 days for all 3 of those guys. So the Marlins bullpen has been incredibly shaky all year. Not a bullpen I love betting on. I don't think the gap in bullpens, because the Cardinals bullpen is their best feature, I don't think the gap in bullpens for Monday is as big as I would have made it had the Cardinals had everybody well rested. So Marlins down to plus 115 and the Rockies down to plus 150.
Okay. And Charlie, back to the Rockies.
Yeah, I talked a bit about
Charlie wrote in our show notes, if I had to choose, Rockies, but staying in it.
Yeah, listen, I think the Rockies are a great bet. I'm going to be looking to fade him and fade Paxton in a different way. That's ultimately what I decided on. But if I wasn't fading him in some way, I'd be on the Rockies in this one. And then just throw something out real quick because it just crossed my mind. This has nothing to do with underdogs, but going back to Sean's best bet on Toronto, the Red Sox are also emptying the complete clip tonight against the Yankees to make sure they win. So guys like, I'm sure Kenley's pitching the 9th because at the time he's not pitching. Like it's the middle of the inning. He'll be pitching on back-to-back days, probably unavailable. And Weissert just pitched back-to-back days. He's unavailable. Bernardino also back-to-back days, only threw 3 pitches yesterday, but 3 guys that are pitching on back-to-back days after an emotional series. It just crossed my mind right now because I just looked down and saw that Weiser got the 8th. But something to keep an
They're
eye
also
on.
not going to get to their hotel until like 2 a.m. at this point.
Right. And yeah, and I've talked multiple times about fading teams off Sunday Night Baseball travel. But yeah, ultimately Rockies, if I had to choose one for the underdog, but wanted to at least get that in there to think about, bullpen usage also in that Blue Jays game. Because in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning, who are they going to turn to? I don't know.
One more point I wanted to make or echo what Charlie said before, just to reemphasize it with the splits for the Rockies. The Rockies are 29th against right-handed pitching this season. They are 21st against lefties. They're 94 WRC plus against lefties, 81 against righties. So not like, abysmal, worse than the league against lefties. They are against righties.
And better at home.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay, a couple more, then we'll get out of here. Final bets, Zerillo, you have one total, an under for tomorrow.
Happy Paul Skeens Day. Paul Skeens, 112 pitching plus this season. That is the highest pitch plus rating amongst starting pitchers. Jared Jones, his teammate, at 111. Nick Pivetta at 110. Corbin Burns and Zach Wheeler, 109. Tanner Houck, 108. Tarek Skubal, 107. That's a pretty damn good list, huh?
Yep.
So 112 pitching plus for Skeens this season. He's as elite as it gets, guys. I don't know what to tell you at this point, but I mean, Steamer has him as projected as the best starting pitcher in baseball. He might be. He really might be. We'll see how many innings they let him go. We'll see if he pitches into September. Because I brought up on a previous podcast, given his projected innings over the rest of the season and how he's going per start right now, it seems like he could get shut down in September. So if you have Skeens Rookie of the Year tickets, you're going to be the favorite at one point. It might even be, I think he's close to a favorite now. Shota's still pitching really well. He may get to minus money at some point, and you may be tearing those up in September. So just be wary. Those Skeens NL Rookie of the Year tickets may die in heartbreak. He may take the lead and then end up falling behind Shota, who pitches out the full season. But I mean, as elite as gets, Paul Skeens. Carson Spires is the interesting arm in this game. He was working as a reliever for the Reds. His projections preseason are horrible, like in the 5s in terms of an ERA. But he has really good command, and he is a phenomenal slider. 141 stuff plus on his slider. Everything else in the arsenal is below average, but he generates a lot of pop-ups. So he's, doing some hidden things in terms of his skill set. Fly ball pitcher who generates a lot of pop-ups. So not going to get hurt by the home run ball if it's just going straight up in the air. And I've discussed Pittsburgh's lefty-righty splits constantly this season, but just to reiterate, they're 20th against righties, 15th against lefties. So in their lesser split here, don't like them against righty pitchers in general, and made this line closer to 7.5. So the under 8 between the Reds and the Pirates, up to about minus 110, got something closer to minus 105. So not a huge edge, but another Paul Skeens under. Hopefully this game is tight and low scoring, and his bullpen does not implode like it typically seems to do when he starts.
Skeens plus 150 right now. Rookie of the Year.
And Shota.
You want to talk about
Shota plus 115.
I was going to say what interesting to think about too. I mean, I don't think we should go on another 10-minute tangent on the awards, but Yamamoto also going out with injury for a couple months, I think. I don't remember. I don't know
that was odd, by the way. Watching,
they scratched him, pitched him 2 days later, and then he left with injury. Yeah,
and then there was the dugout was in a frenzy. It was weird. Roberts was jogging down the dugout.
It was
within 24 hours.
Situation. Yeah, the Dodgers win total under 104.5 wins, very much alive at this point with those two guys going down, and they're playing for October, right? They know they're going to make October. They just want those guys healthy by the time they get there. So
intrigued by Jackson Merrill in the Rookie of the Year market. Maybe a couple other hitters too, because hitters usually get the leg up. But
regardless of whether he wins or loses, I mentioned Jackson Merrill's name at 75-1 on our preseason awards pod and just never pulled the trigger. It's just a reminder for next season when you see these guys in spring that are getting a legitimate opportunity and they have very long odds to win Rookie of the Year, but they're clearly being given a shot to win a opening day starting job, especially on an aggressive team like the Padres, who we know consistently aggressively promotes prospects. Just keep it in mind for the future. Don't miss out on those numbers, because that's the only time you're going to see 75-1 if you made the team.
Joey Ortiz 10-1.
Joey Ortiz was probably a massive number in the preseason. Joey Ortiz is a good player, man. One of his teammates yesterday called him a generational talent. I thought that was really funny. I think we've gotten to the point where generational talent is probably overused, but I love Joey Ortiz's batting eye. It's a weird comp. He kind of reminds me of Jose Ramirez. That's like the comp I put on Joey Ortiz. Really good plate discipline, long at bats. He's a better defender than Jose. Probably not as potent of a hitter. Obviously not a switch hitter. But just in terms of like effectiveness, I think Joey Ortiz is a damn good player. That was a great trade by them.
Mm-hmm.
Is he playable now at 10-1? Because I know we talked about him a couple weeks ago, Zerillo.
With Yamamoto out, maybe he's the only position player that's like really in the mix, right? I'd have to go through and look at the updated end of season projections, but he was right there. It's the year. It seems like it's the year of the rookie pitcher, and it seems like Luis Gil and one of these NL pitchers are going to double up on Rookie of the Year honors when pitchers haven't really won Rookie of the Year awards recently. So the vibes are Rookie of the Year pitchers, right, in both leagues, but I think Joe Ortiz is the one position player I'd bet on, especially in the NL.
Okay. I think that's it. Charlie, any final bets? Are you good? Good to go?
No, I'm good. I got my Mets talk in, but since Grimace has thrown out the first pitch, the Mets are 5-0, and they're about to win the World Series. So why don't you book the ticket now, Brendan?
And Lindor MVP.
Yeah. I'm actually going to log Lindor MVP after this, just so you know.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
It's a good segue. You can find Charlie DiSturco in the Action Network app, Sean Zerillo as well. We'll be back here tomorrow night to get you set for for Tuesday's slate. We'll be recording the night before, so bigger slate for Tuesday. That'll conclude our episode record for Monday, June 17th. For Charlie and Sean, Brendan Glasheen. Again, find these guys in the Action Network app. Please leave your 5-star ratings and reviews. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching us on the YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in to Payoff Pitch. We are Action Network's MLB betting podcast presented by BetMGM. Best of luck, and we'll see you next time.